Hello and welcome back to the Bored Whovian YouTube channel, and today is day 3 of the 14 days of Doctor Who. So obviously today was the day I had to review The Runaway Bride, and so I've just finished watching it there. I've got some notes down here, and yeah, without further ado, let's get on with it. So we start off, and the one thing I noticed is it's got the exact same starting shot as Rose and the last Christmas special. The exact same starting shot of, the zoom in on Earth, which I don't know if they use after this again, but it is, very like that era. This is very early RTD era. It still feels very much of that time. This is just after the ending of Series 2, especially the time it takes place. The Doctor's only just said goodbye to Rose, and then, had Donna thrust upon him. So, yeah, going into that. But then it shows how Donna's perspective and how she ends up in the TARDIS. And I'd say probably the first half an hour is not that much of, villains and aliens and whatnot. It's more, how are we going to get back to the wedding? More so. Which is fine. And I like the story. And the thing is, people say, Donna's more annoying in this. But the thing is, in this, you can kind of, I see the character beneath all that. I see the anger and stuff as a kind of front. Which you kind of know when she first opens the doors of the TARDIS and she sees, space and everything, and Doctor explains, I'm an alien, this is a spaceship, and then eventually she seems very much overwhelmed by it all, and she's almost afraid to kind of show that kind of vulnerability, so instead she goes, to freeze and just close the doors, but you can see that in her performance. Catherine Tate is stellar in this. Of course, as well, one thing people say is that Rose gets mentioned a lot in this, but the thing is, unlike Series 3, where she gets mentioned a few times, that sometimes it's quite annoying, especially in the Shakespeare Code. Here it makes so much sense, because it's literally just happened for him. It's just happened to him, to the point where her one of her shirts is still in the TARDIS. And, that confrontation between Donna and the Doctor saying, how many women have you abducted? And then you can see his face. He's not angry at Donna for mentioning it, because why would he? She doesn't know, but he's just still so raw out of that. He hasn't emotionally dealt with it yet. The Doctor's not someone who deals with heartbreak and deals with loss. He's someone who runs away from it, and it's just happened with him, and he's just heartbroken by it. And whether you like the idea of the Doctor, I'm not a big fan of the Doctor falling in love with someone, but the fallout from it is very good for his character. You can just see he's just absolutely broken by it, and that forms his decision making towards the end of the episode. And it's brilliant from David Tennant in this episode as well. He's fantastic, and to be honest, I will never say David Tennant's bad in an episode. I can't think of a bad David Tennant performance as in Doctor Who. Yeah, but so she Donna and the Doctor are trying to get back to the wedding. The Doctor's getting yelled at. He gets slapped 1 or 2 times on the TARDIS. Donna's reaction to the TARDIS, I think, is great, because it's a unique spin on someone seeing the TARDIS for the first time, as she gets teleported into the TARDIS. So her first experience is walking out of the TARDIS and then realising it. Just finding out it's a spaceship is a shock, and then she finds out it's not just a spaceship, it's a spaceship which is big on the inside, very unique, and she's just kind of, again, very much overwhelmed and starts nearly crying and just goes, no, I'm just going to walk away. And then they bring back the Santa robots, which obviously are from the last Christmas special, which the Doctor didn't experience too much of, but obviously he saw them briefly as he convinced them to get away, as he claimed they were pilot fish. So he's very much convinced, just deal with them for a little second and they won't bother them. However, later in the episode he finds out that they are actually being controlled by someone, and they're almost for hire. But I love the way that when the Doctor first sees the robot Santas, he instantly goes, right, I need to get rid of them, and or cause a distraction to stop them from doing anything. And he sonics the cash machine to get all the cash out and cause some commotion. And I can't help but watch that now going, bloody hell, I'd love to have been there and just nick all the cash. But obviously that does not happen. With that as well. So at the same time, Donna is picked up in a cab by a robot Santa. And obviously she ends up on the motorway, and she realises something's going on when they miss their turning, and eventually realises it's a robot. I love this scene. as obviously, you see the TARDIS being piloted in a much different way. The Doctor's, it's not supposed to fly like an actual ship, so he's like pulling, he's got like connected a string to the TARDIS, and it's just doing it just to keep it like up and down and stuff. And one thing I also love about this is, you got to admit, Doctor Who is kind of leaning towards kids, especially on a Christmas special. It's going to be very light-hearted, and part of this scene is the reaction of two kids in the back seat of a car on the motorway, looking back at the TARDIS, and they're just reacting to it as normal, and they're just like, "Oh, go on, go on." And as a kid, you can't help but imagine that's you, that's your representation in this story. And as a kid, I did think that, and it was lovely. As I would have been, I would have been a lot younger than those kids. I'd have been 4 at the time of airing, because it was Christmas 2006. But yeah, I love that scene, and there's some good lines in there. Obviously, you've got I love the line where she goes, "I'm in my wedding dress," and he goes, "Yes, you look lovely. Come on." Like, he just complete disregard and complete just go, "Look, just get on with it." But it's when she mentions Rose here, when he goes, "Trust me," and she said, "Is that what your friend said?" And I love that moment, because instantly, instead of crying about it, he goes, "Yes," and she's so alive, and he just feels so. It's almost like he's proud of her, like it's of Rose and everything she did, and it's a nice scene. And again, I'm not someone who loves their relationship in series 2, but I love this kind of fallout from it. But yeah, it's really dealt with quite well, and the music in that scene as well is fantastic. And actually, talking about the music for a bit, I noticed so much of the music here is reused in series 4. Like, they don't really change a lot of Donna's music and her thematic music at all. A lot of it I can notice from episodes throughout. I remember hearing a lot of this in the first 2 episodes of series 4 in Partners in Crime and Fast Paid, at least, and throughout the rest of the series for sure. But yeah, a lot of it does come back, and it felt that might have helped with my mood, because my brain kind of associates that music with like good episodes, and this is still a good episode. It is a good episode, don't get me wrong. This is a fun episode, and it's one that I would rewatch, as I have in this instance. But when we get to the reception, obviously skipping past a few lines and whatnot, the Doctor ends up finding out that H.G. Clements is connected to Torchwood, which is a nice way of linking it back to the previous series and the previous episode, obviously, as Doomsday was the final episode of series 2. And then, while they're playing the new song which has been made for the episode, I think it's called Love Don't Rhyme, not as big as of a banger as Song for 10, but still, it's alright. But while that's playing, the Doctor obviously looks over and sees 2 people dancing, and he kind of flashbacks to Rose, and you just see that he just can't get it out of his mind, because it's so fresh for him. It's just happened. And, I can hear people complaining, saying like, this kind of stuff doesn't happen with other companions in the past, but this is the first companion exit of New Who. And, it's a tragic one. He cannot see her ever again. And other exits are similar to that. When you see how he reacts when Donna leaves eventually at the end of series 4, that's massive for him, and he's absolutely stunned at that again. It's very similar, but he has no one to fall back on at that, and that's how he ends up where he does in like Waters of Mars with the Time Lord Victorious. But yeah, so when they're after he's had his little spook with Rose, he finds out that there's Huon energy involved, and that's how she got zapped into the TARDIS. And I love this scene, because obviously he's given her the biodamper, the ring, and suddenly realises it doesn't work. And in such a Doctor fashion, he immediately starts screaming and runs to Donna and is in a massive panic, running around, so energetic. And I do love David Tennant's performance of the Doctor. It's just manic and amazing, and it's fantastic. But when he defeats the Santas here, I love how he does it just by putting the Sonic into the sound system. Because that's what the Sonic is. Sonic means noise, so he's absolutely like playing like this absolutely inaudible noise that breaks them, which is pretty cool. But my one question is if it's breaking the actual structure of the robots, how are any of those people's earlobes functioning? But doesn't matter. Let's move on. We get around the halfway point, which is where we are now. Teasers of the Rachnos. So we see the first. It only happens once or twice. I think it only happens once. Just one shot of the Rachnos on their ship. of the Empress of the Arachnos, and we don't see the full Arachnos, we just see the legs. And then only about 6 minutes later we get the real deal. But before we get the real deal, obviously they go back to H.G. Clements, and the Doctor explains everything. But when we get the actual Arachnos reveal, I love it, because instantly the Doctor is there to kind of explain what they are, like, you're the Arachnos, you know, and it kind of establishes the importance of the villain, which is helpful. As well, the Lance twist, I think it's actually done quite well. As you can see, seeds have been planted. The idea that his name is Head of Human Resources, and he's, you know, using Donna as a resource to help the Arachnos. And also, you know, the fact that they mention 4 minutes or 5 minutes before Lance is revealed to, you know, been behind this, that, you know, they've turned it into liquid form, and that's how she was doing it, and it took 6 months, and then you go, he was feeding her coffee for 6 months. So it feeds enough in there for someone to perhaps figure it out quickly before it happens. But still, it's well done, as it's not out of nowhere. There are planted seeds, and it makes sense. However, when they threaten to kill the Doctor and Donna, or, you know, well, kill the Doctor and shoot at them and everything, they the Doctor pulls the TARDIS back using the Huon particles, and I've got to say, the TARDIS materialisation here is fantastic. And it's almost like turning from dust, to just physically being there, and it's awesome because it just materialises around them, and it's brilliant, and it's a great little, and there's another fun materialisation as well at the end where the TARDIS kind of zooms up, but I don't know. That's another great one. This has a few like fun little shots here, but first of all, I've just got to go back on the Arachnos. The Arachnos looks amazing. When you think that's actually just physically there, none of that is CGI. The only CGI bits are the ones on the ship where you just see the legs, but this is completely there, and that's fantastic. You know, they've done a real good job, because she's like hooked in, like the actual base of the spider and the legs are obviously, you know, being controlled, but, you know, as an actor, she's just kind of, I think, laying there, just being able to move like her chest a little bit, and her arms, which obviously have kind of like pointy sticks at the end as a spider. And thing is, one thing I will add, I have massive arachnophobia, and this doesn't scare me enough because it looks more like a person. As a spider, it's not as scary, but yeah, arachnids in the UK did kind of put me on the edge, because I have a massive fear of spiders. But moving on, when the Doctor moves away, he realises that they've gone to the centre of the Earth, so he needs to find out what they're looking for. And the scene where they go to the actual creation of the Earth is really lovely, because, you know, Donna's just, it's probably the last time Donna sees space. This time she kind of sees the beauty of it, and it's a lovely little scene as the Doctor's just kind of explaining how everything's going to get formed, and she's like, oh, but we're so tiny, and the Doctor explains, no, you're not, because humans aren't tiny, because what's the point in beauty if not to be observed? Which is fantastic, and also the way that humans, you know, we distract ourselves and make sense of chaos with everything that we do with our lives, and that's the point, and I love that. But when they get back, I've got to say, I love this little gag when Donna's talking and she gets kidnapped, and the Doctor realises, he talks on for about another 10 seconds, and he goes, hold on, you've never been so quiet, and turns around and realises she's gone, which is just really fun. It's really good. I don't know why, but at this point, the Arachnos decides to just zap the Earth for no reason. She just decides to do it for fun, just for food. I'm like, you could just eat them without, you know, cooking them, but actually no, maybe you could. I mean, I'd want to cook my food first. So she decides to use the web star to kind of electrocute everyone. And I've got one nitpick here, which is a nitpick which is in lots of TV and film, and I don't know why. Like, it's dumb. It's something that only happens in TV and film. When the lightning bolts and kind of the electronic zaps are coming from the web star, there's a little girl in a street where the lightning bolt's kind of coming down the street and not moving, it's going straight to her, and she's just screaming the entire time, standing still. I'm like, literally, move left or right and you're fine, and you're just standing still and just screaming like, what's going on? And I have this kind of nitpick as well with, there's a moment in the Ghost Monument, I'm going very off topic here, there's a moment in the Ghost Monument where the ship that Jodie's in is crashing, towards Ryan and Graham and the person who threw them. And in that moment, run left or right. Don't run the direction that the ship's coming. But yeah, I'll move on quickly. But yeah, that is a little bit of a nitpick. So anyway, they get once they're back. Obviously, Donna's been caught, and Lance has been killed by the Arachnos, which kind of it's a villain. You know, they'll turn on them for food and everything, as they've already released the kids who are climbing up at this point. But obviously, that will take a bloody long time because they are at the centre of the earth. One thing I do like here is the Doctor, is pretty off screen, just destroyed a robot, taken its place, and is there with like their controls and everything, and he sonics the web which Donna's stuck in. Somehow that works. I don't know how, but it works. And she swings, and it's like he's planning for her to swing in his arms, and she ends up like crashing into the stairs, which is pretty funny. But I'm pretty sure in that scenario she should have a bloody few bruises. But yeah, in this scenario, he reveals that he's got the controls while he's trying to make a deal with Arachnos. And I do like this gag as well. There's a few gags which I just want to mention because I do like them. Where obviously he goes, where Donna goes, how they fit in there, and he goes, well, they're bigger on the inside. And it made me think, are his pockets bigger on the inside? 'Cause, they could be. We don't know. Maybe. But yeah. Moving on. It really does get serious at this point because, he's really threatening them, and he goes, well, look, this is your fault. This is completely, if you don't agree to my terms, this is your fault. And then and then the Rashnok goes, oh, well, I'm going to feast on Martian flesh. And he goes, well, I'm not from Mars. Gallifrey. And that scene just sends shivers down your spine. The way it's performed, the way the music plays it off is fantastic. Because you just see, like, how, like, feared he is in that scenario. And that in this scene, you're not getting the Doctor. You're getting the Time Lord victorious. This is... People complain, like, people say, like, people don't realise, how much that happens on later in Tennant's Run. Happens early on as well. Like I've mentioned in the Christmas Invasion, like you see the dark sides of his character already there, and here you see them, and they get explored at the end of the episode as well later on, which I'll get to. But I love this little moment, and then of course everyone's drowning, and you get this moment which is taken back, which is looked back on in Turn Left when Donna goes, look, you can stop now. And even in this episode, before they'd even written Turn Left, you see him realise and then just have a little thought moment to himself going. And you don't know what he says. He says something to himself. And it's almost like he realises, I was going to die there. That's what I'd like to say in my head, because that is what happens in Turn Left, obviously. But, yeah. And then the Webstar gets destroyed, and that is the first verbal confirmation of Harold Saxon existing, as I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure the first mention of Harold Saxon in the show is in Love and Monsters, as in one of the papers, as I think it's the paper that the Absorberlove's holding. One of them says, like, Saxon head in the polls or something. But, yeah, that's the first verbal mention as he gives the order to shoot down the Christmas star. And that's all good and everything. The Doctor and Donna get away, and they have the final scene of the episode is very good. It's very well done. As Donna, it's slow. They have time to talk, and they're just outside Donna's house. It's just nice, and Donna is completely right in this scene because she's offered the chance to travel with him, and she says no and goes, look, it's terrible. Everything here, you were killing everyone, and you just stood there, like, and she can't really explain how he stood there because it was just so unusual and alien to her, because he was just almost willing to die in that scenario, just because he was. I think it's because of the loss of Rose in that moment. He's just vulnerable, so he's just letting all this anger at the Arachnos out. But it's just so many nice little moments in this scene. When she goes, "Am I ever going to see you again?" He says, "If I'm lucky." Just watching this after series 4 just makes you feel like really nice, and it always brings a tear to my eye because Donna is a fantastic companion, and her exit really bloody hurt me as a kid. But again, she's really right off this because she asks him to promise her that he'll find someone, because, and in her own words, you need someone to stop you, which again really, really, like, completely correct. Just look at Waters of Mars. Look at that. Imagine you had a companion in that scenario. Done. It doesn't happen. But that's what happens when you leave the this incarnation on his own. All hell breaks loose. But the final words of the 10th Doctor in this episode. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the 10 Rows, and yet it nearly brought a tear to my eye. Just the way his voice changes, and she goes, "That friend of yours," and he goes, "Her name was Rose," and you can hear in his voice he's struggling and he's just about to break apart. And you almost feel like as soon as he closes that door and materialises away, he's just breaking into tears. That's the image you have in your head. And, you know, it's a great way of establishing that, you know, this isn't over for him. Just because Rose is gone doesn't mean, you know, it's all clear in his head. Because a lot of people may say he's not reacted to this like companions before. And not only is it the first companion of the new series, he hasn't had a companion properly in ages. You know, he had the Time War to deal with, and then suddenly his first proper companion was Rose, and he's suddenly fine. And then she's gone. So you can see why it impacts him, because she's the person who kind of showed him the light and took him out of the place he was, out of the dark place he was, coming out of the Time War. But yeah, I do love this episode. It's really nice. And I think it's a lot better in hindsight with everything that follows it. I think at the time it was probably worse. If I was watching this on the 25th of December 2006, I'd go, is this that good? But with the retrospect of Donna coming back and, you know, the character arc of the Doctor and Turn Left and everything, I think it's quite a good episode. And I think I forgot to rank the last one. I think I might have. I think I might have given it a 7.5 out of 10. This is I don't know. I mean, thing is, not much happens. It's fun. The thing is, for me, I just want to enjoy myself with Doctor episode. If I have fun, I'll watch it again. And I do have fun with this episode. I'd give it maybe a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. But it's a special. I don't really care too much. I enjoyed myself, and it does a lot for the series. So I'll say I'll give it a 6.5. But it's definitely a fun little hour romp, and it works. It's a fun little Christmas special, and I love everyone. I love, you know, the main characters. I love Donna and the Doctor, and, you know, watching this just made me instantly think of Series 4, which I can't wait to kind of get towards that end. Obviously, when I get later on, I'm going to have to reach the end of time at some point. That is in 3 days, I think. Yeah, 3 days. You're going to get that review, and God, that'll be a struggle, because I might have to give it 10 minutes after I finish the episode. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this review. Obviously, tomorrow will be the Voyage of the Damned review. Hopefully you enjoyed that. But yeah, please comment below what you thought. Did you like it, this episode? Do you dislike it? Do you agree with my opinion? Do you disagree with my opinion? You know, what are your thoughts? Please comment below. If you like the video, then drop a like. Subscribe if you're new. Ding the bell for notifications if you want to know when I'm uploading next. However, at the moment, it is going to be every day. Every day I'm uploading. Around kind of 2-3ish. I'm uploading around that time of day. You'll see it. If you go onto my channel, you'll see the next video scheduled. By the time this is released, the next video should be scheduled already. So you'll see them all on my channel. But yeah, that's it. So just before we finish off, also I've got my Instagram, which is at @the_board_Whovian, which is linked to my YouTube channel. So go and check that out. And yeah, that is it. I've been the Board Whovian, and I'll see you around. Merry Christmas.